Hey, welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hope you all had a good weekend. All it kind of did was snow here, so I've been shoveling snow all weekend, but, you know, life in Canada, right? So yeah, go ahead, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Like always, this really helps out the channel. I want to thank everyone who stopped by the merch store, liked, or even purchased a t-shirt and hoodie right now. That's really, really cool. Brought up in the comments was someone wanted to see some of the merchandise, wanted to see me wearing it, so I wanted to address that. Here in Canada, our post office has gone on strike, so we got no deliveries until that's been resolved. So with all that out of the way, let's see what we got today. We are live.
You think you know about Australia? You don't know nothing about Australia. Let's talk about Melbourne. So, according to the official narrative, Melbourne was founded in 1835. But we know, anytime they use the word founded, it means something was already there. This was the APA building, which was the tallest building at the time. They say it was built in 1888, but guess what? They ripped it down. I wonder what they had to hide. That this was the Federal Coffee Palace, also built in 1888, and again, it got demolished. It's a bit much for a bit of coffee if you ask me. But what's that I see? Is that windows half buried in the ground? Looks like a mud flood building to me. And what about the Parliament House building built in 1856? 422 foot long, 256 feet high, 150 foot dome. The largest block of basalt weighed 6.9 tons, and this was all built in less than a year with just a hammer and a chisel. And in the middle of all this genocide, digging for resources to build these buildings, you had time to have a world fair. Come on, brother. And again, you don't see no construction photos. All you see is a couple of men standing around looking lost. I'm gonna have to do a part 3 to this, because I ain't done with Australia yet.
Well, we're off and running. Interesting. Very interesting.
Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. These Tartarian structures believed to be built in the early 1800s. This building is formerly known as Colonial Secretary's Building. This is the State Library of New South Wales. Take a look at this large door. This is the Queen Victoria Building, built in 1898, they said, with people on horse and carriages, no electricity. Do they build these structures? Impossible. The QVB building goes deep down under the underground. And finally, Sydney Town Hall Civic Centre, a monumental structure. The largest and most ornate late 19th century civic building in Australia is renowned for its high Victorian interiors and rich decoration.
Once again, that similar architectural style, right?
When I say history is a lie, I mean his story is a lie. What you know about Australia? Oh my days. So, according to the official narrative, the first settlement at Sydney consisted of about 850 convicts and their Marine Guards and officers, led by Governor Arthur Phillip. They arrived at Botany Bay in the first fleet of 9 transport ships, accompanied by 2 small warships, in January 1788. So let me see if I got this straight. You're trying to tell me by the 1800s, those ex-convicts and Marines went on to build buildings like this with just a hammer and chisel? And it wasn't just a one building flex, it was a whole city. What? Let me see if I got this straight. The official narrative said this is the first building made in 1793. And you're trying to tell me that they went from this to buildings like this in what, 50, 60 years? No power tools, just horse and a wagon. This photo is from 1804, just over 20 years after the first settlers arrived, who were ex-convicts and military men. And the building fully complete. I'm gonna have to do a 3-part series on this because I ain't finished with Australia yet.
Yeah. Something weird's going on.
Sometimes the truth is not so easy to hide. Every so often, if you just look at something with open eyes, you can see where they got sloppy with their storytelling. I focus a lot of my attention on America because its history is easy to refute. Another place where the architecture just doesn't match up to its history is Australia. And I say this with certainty because the history of Australia is so clear and so well documented. A bunch of prisoners were brought over there by a bunch of military from the UK, and they created settlements. So the real question to ask when you look at the continent of Australia is who the fuck was building all these goddamn cathedrals, city halls, and massive buildings all across the country? It certainly wasn't a bunch of prisoners, and it certainly wasn't a bunch of UK military from back in the 1800s. I don't think so. You see, I am a Tartarianist, and I can't help but look at all of these buildings that are scattered across the world and point directly at the long-lost Tartarian Empire. In certain places like Australia, it's clear that 2 or 3 boatloads of prisoners and British military did not go there and start quarrying stones and shaping stones to build large cathedrals and city halls, hotels, and all these other type of buildings which are scattered across the country in a way that literally makes no sense. And that's where you can look at evidence of the lies that exist in our history, trying to perpetuate the myth that horse and buggy motherfuckers were out there building these type of buildings, all to just erase the fact that Tartaria existed. They just want to gaslight us and make us think that we're crazy for thinking anything outside of the rhetoric, anything outside of their story, their history. If you've reached part 18 of this series, you know exactly what the fuck I think. Everything we know is a lie, and they keep lying to us, and I'm not having it no more. I hope you aren't either. I'm doing what I can to point out that we live in a world that's just been fabricated, a storyline for us to read, and that's why I keep on showing you these images from across the world, building after building, cathedrals, churches, city halls, because it's all a lie, and I need you to see that, and then maybe I can sleep at night. Maybe I know that I've done my job if I've helped wake somebody up to the facts of the world that we really live in. Like here in the actual land of Oz, where I'm pulling back the curtain to expose the wizard and all of his tricks. Once again, I thank you for watching. Please like, comment, follow, and share. This is me, your boy, Mr. 76, signing out.
Yeah, I'm right there with this guy. We're simply presenting the evidence. Take from it what you will. I know how I feel. It is what it is.
This is the Oriental Bank of Australia, built in 1858. All of these buildings were said to be the result of a mass population event due to a gold rush in Melbourne, Australia, and the surrounding areas. But folks, that's not the first time that we've heard this story. And in fact, it's a very common theme all around the world. There's a gold rush, you have a massive build-up of structures, and that's it, right? So out west in California, David, South Dakota, but there's more than that. It's not just Melbourne, it's New Zealand. Even in Ireland, you had gold rush, right? And supposedly that explains all these structures, all these neoclassical type structures, these colonnades, everybody built with the same style. Now ask yourself, how can that be? How can we look everywhere in the world and we see the same style of building? Was it that popular? Was Rome that impressive to the entire world that we had to build every single building in those days to mimic and be a reminder of ancient Rome and Greece? I don't think that's true. But what I do think is that we've been lied to, and no matter where you look, you'll see these same buildings. Make it make sense.
100%. The buildings here in Canada look the same as Australia.
The World's Fair's Down Under. Because a country founded by a bunch of prisoners less than 100 years ago. And 20 years before it even officially became a country, they decided to have two world fairs back to back. This one here in Sydney. Of course, with the same silly time frame of them all, less than 2 years to construct these marvels, and tore down in 2 years afterwards. And then in 1880, you had the World's Fair in Melbourne, the first official World's Fair in the Southern Hemisphere, they say. Because I guess the one the year before in Sydney just didn't quite make the grade. Fair in 1879, and a fair in 1880. What a great way to start a new country.
Do you want to hear something strange about Australia? Yeah? Well, that's good. That's real good. Let's listen to someone that's actually from there and hear what they've got to say.
So we've got this amazing world where we've arrived and we have the engineering abilities, the amazing architectural design, the amazing industry that supports these engineering feats to make these extraordinary buildings, gigantic buildings in all directions. Everywhere you look in Melbourne, gigantic, magnificent, highly engineered structures. None of them included bathrooms, toilets, plumbing, kitchens, and probably even bedrooms that we don't know about that. But basically all of the basic needs one would have as a human being in current form.
Yeah, and they built the whole city. Then they went, oh, maybe we should put a sewer system in, apparently.
Yeah, that's another running theme. There's never any washrooms in these buildings.
From down under, another secret hidden buried underground. This time in Melbourne, Australia. The most elaborate tunnel network in the world, they say. I'm sure it was, during Prohibition or, the Underground Railroad, as they tell us is the excuse for the ones in America. But let's see what the news team in Melbourne has to say about it.
A network of tunnels and secrets are being discovered beneath Melbourne in what's been described as a subterranean city.
It's fascinating. There are rumours and the reality. Some say there's a ghost train under Swanston Street. Others believe a two-storey pub is buried below the concrete of Collins.
So we sent Today Melbourne reporter Isabella Stashkovsky to uncover the underground truth. This is a city thousands walk through every day, many without realising what lies below. Hidden beneath Melbourne, there is a treasure trove of stories, many still to be told. This is a tale of two cities, one above and one below. Beneath Bennett's Lane in the CBD, a Pompeii-like discovery, thanks to a routine check before the construction of a new 20-storey build.
What we discovered was that the further evidence of what's become known as the buried blocks phenomenon.
3 metres below street level, a time capsule of life almost 200 years ago. More than 100,000 artefacts and whole standing structures.
We encountered these what were actually the remains of single-storey cottages from the 1830s, 1840s. So there were fireplaces there. You could see the staircases going down to them.
There are others like it and more to be found. But this was accidental preservation out of practicality.
Show me a city that doesn't have another city below it.
Oh my days. Did the ancient Egyptians reach Australia? Archaeologists claim a man-made structure was built under this mountain 5,000 years ago. All over Australia, these pyramid-shaped structures can be found. The mainstream narrative said this is nothing more than a mountain, because if it was a pyramid, it would go against everything we've been told about Australia. Also, found in a cave was Egyptian writing. And again, the mainstream narrative said this is nothing more than a hoax. Why? Because it would go against everything we've been told about Australia. But like I've said before, the truth is right in front of us. It's hiding in plain sight.
And they're finding Egyptian hieroglyphs in America now, too.
Australia is just kind of a miracle, And I know I've talked about it before, but you have this influx of people, all because of a gold rush. And supposedly, you had 10,000 people turn into 100,000. But even in the 1850s, before all those people, you have buildings like these. This neoclassical style is just out on a dirt road, and it's just really out of place. But that's a story, They escaped prisoners, they came there, they built up all these big cities with these fancy electrical apparatuses and lightning rods. And that's just a story, Down under. But it's the same story as everywhere else. The same buildings, the same time frame, the same trams, same dirt roads, the same sparse amount of people that seem to exist. And of course, this is how they built it.
This was Australia in the late 1800s, during the time of it being a penal colony. Now that's what always makes these pictures of Australia back then so interesting. They tell us all that you see here was built before Australia was even established officially as a country. Of course, you see the whited out skies poorly edited here. Another thing you don't see in any of these pictures from the old world is any construction sites, any scaffoldings, any signs of actual construction. Just buildings looking very worn and far older and grander than they should be. Grand structures with the typical muddy streets along with them. These structures were already here long before Captain Cook came along. This Freemasonry was just founded and repurposed and reused by us inheritors. What's sad is most of these buildings you can guarantee are already torn down long before their prime, replaced with ugly glass boxes. Just another travesty in our history that is nothing more than a set of lies agreed upon. Question everything, friends. Until next time.
Yeah, brick by brick. They'll take it all down and hide it from us.
And people don't realise in Australia that we have two of the top bases that are absolutely important for America in the event of a nuclear war. In the event of a nuclear war, do not be anywhere near Alice Springs or a place called Pine Gap or Exmouth in Western Australia. Both of those locations contain bases that are integral to the American strategic nuclear defence, and they will be obliterated in a nuclear war. And something has been taking a very close interest in those bases. I've spoken to American and Australian people who've told me firsthand of objects being seen and detected around those locations. There is an intelligence allegedly engaging with this planet that's been taking an interest in particularly our nuclear weapons, probably out of concern. I do think the evidence is overwhelming that there is a non-human intelligence. That's the new word, NHI, not necessarily alien, because it might be interdimensional.
Pine Gap, however, in Australia, is widely regarded as one of the most mysterious facilities on the planet, with conspiracies ranging from reverse engineering of alien technology, secret weapons programs, and even claims of time travel missions. Just what is going on at this military facility and for whose benefit? Pine Gap, a joint Australia-America facility, is claimed to be one of the most secretive locations in Australia. Built in the 1970s and located almost right in the middle of the country, just south of the McDonnell Ranges to the west of Alice Springs, the facility is so secret that the Australian government purposely avoided talking about it. That changed, however, almost 2 decades after it began operations, when a UFO sighting near Pine Gap was picked up by the media, forcing authorities to publicly acknowledge that the facility existed.
There was an investigation done here in Australia, right? 40,000 children disappear here in Australia every year. And the one who was heading that team, investigative team, He said, I am shocked. You can watch it, it's on YouTube. He said, I am shocked because I have 27 names on this paper here in front of me. These 27 names, they are 100% truly whatever they've done, because police, at federal level have investigated them thoroughly, and with proofs, they are all guilty of all these child abuses here in Australia, 40,000. He said, but to my shock, I would never ever had imagined I would see this as an Aussie. He said, some of the names in this list are ex-prime ministers of this nation. Ex-prime ministers. Anyone who hurts an elderly person and a young child is a coward, is an evildoer. May the Lord Jesus rebuke them all. And if the Lord sees that they don't wish to repent, Lord, I beg you, pluck them from their roots, whoever they are, wherever they are. Because enough of this evilness. Little innocent children, you evildoers, you cowards, you traitors, you... If I see them in front of me, I'll lose it. I'll finally use my red belt in karate. If I get the chance, I will rescue those children myself and let them kill me. I don't care.
You know, I'm right there with the guy. You know, it just seems every one of our countries, we all seem to have the same architecture, the same underground tunnels, the same problem with missing children and corrupt elites. Guarantee Dan Andrews is part of the ex-Prime Minister Club there. It's a sick world we live in, and we don't live in the world that a lot of us think we do. So there we go, guys. That's Australia, or at least, you know, getting into the topic of Australia. There's a lot to it that I didn't realize. I didn't realize how many Tartarian buildings were actually there, or used to be there, rather. A lot of those, I think they said, were torn down now. So it just goes to show you, you know, that this Tartarian civilization was worldwide. You see that Greco-Roman style of architecture in absolutely every country. That's not a coincidence. Like, I live here in Edmonton, Alberta, and Edmonton, Alberta was a gold rush town. It was a Klondike town for a long, long time. We even have a fair every year that celebrates it, Klondike Days, or it's been abbreviated to K Days. You see that same type of style in the remaining buildings. Same with our Capitol building. It looks just like something you'd see in Washington. You know, can't be a coincidence. But anyways, that's what I got today, guys. I want to thank everyone for coming and hanging out with me today. Hope you enjoyed these clips. I'll be back again tomorrow with something else. And, you know, don't forget to leave a comment and check out the merch store. And thanks to everyone who has already. But I guess I will see you again in the next one. And until then, 80 Canadian, signing off.